I'm Abby Laursen from Snap Inc., and you're listening to the CPG Guys podcast.
Welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. Your hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys.
Hello and welcome to the CPG Guys podcast, live from the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity, straight from Cannes, France. I'm of course Shri, your co-host, and joining me today is the other co-host, Peter V.S. Bond. When not on the CPG Guys, I'm also CRO and co-founder at Think Blue Consulting, a management advisory firm focused on omnichannel brands and retail transformation. Please do listen to my older daughter's music at www.riaraj.com. That's R-H-E-R-A-J. And my younger daughter, Lara Raj, is a member of the fast-growing global girl group, Cat's Eye. The new hit, Gabriella, is out on all channels. We recently hit episode 500 with Amazon VP of Ads, Tana Elton, released on June 18th. Please do check it out on all podcasting platforms. We appreciate you leaving us a review and rating on the Apple Podcast platform. It informs us how we're doing and if we're having the right conversations on this podcast. The CPG Guys were here all week and recorded several episodes with industry luminaries from CMOs to brand and retail media leadership. Enjoy this episode. Let's welcome Abby Laursen, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Snap Inc. Snap, of course, is a technology company that believes the camera presents the greatest opportunity to improve the way people live and communicate. That's actually one of the best company introductions I've ever spoken of.
Isn't that good?
Snap contributes to human progress by empowering people to express themselves, live in the moment, learn about the world, and have fun together. The company's three core products are Snapchat, a visual messaging app. I mean, who doesn't know Snapchat?
Yeah.
The visual messaging app that actually enhances your relationships with friends, family, and the world. Lens Studio, an augmented reality platform that powers AR across Snapchat and other services. And it's AR glasses, spectacles. Abby, it's Cannes Lions. Thank you for making time.
Of course.
Welcome to the CPG Guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Shri, do the CPG Guys contribute to human progress? I'm still kind of like stuck on that one. That was like, what do we do?
We need three things.
We're comic relief. I know that much.
Are we AR though? We need AR.
We know. Okay.
We have
Sorry.
glasses though. We qualify. 1 out of 3 we qualify. And so Abby will include your LinkedIn profile, Snap's website, and LinkedIn page for our listeners to access in the digital liner notes of this episode. So let's get started and let me jump right in.
Yeah.
What makes Snap a uniquely powerful platform for CPG marketers compared to the so many other choices they have in social or retail media environments? I mean, this festival is all about that.
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting question and something I've been thinking so much about this week while I've been here, because it's also something that we get asked a lot by our clients and by our advertising partners. And you know what I keep coming back to, there's sort of two things. One is our audience. So Snapchat has been around for a while, and you know the generation has sort of grown up with Snapchat. So I think people sort of have a misconception sometimes that Snapchat is just full of young people who maybe don't have any buying power, but that's not actually true. You know, those young people have now grown up, and they are the people making purchasing decisions.
So we're thinking from like, you know, there are different generations: the baby boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, and now and on and on. So that's what you're saying is, they've moved into another group, but they're still using it.
They're still using it. They've stuck around. And you know what I keep reinforcing for all of our partners while we're here this week is they've stuck around, and the platform really serves such an important purpose in someone's lives. It's that opportunity to connect with friends and family. And so the engagement is incredibly high as well. So you sort of have this audience that's grown up on the platform. They're highly engaged. And what they do on our platform is really different. So while on some of our other competitors, what you experience is really that sort of content consumption, almost like a passive scrolling experience.
The doom scroll.
The doom scroll. I wasn't going to say it, but it's kind of the doom scroll, right?
Whereas we say that all the time.
On Snapchat, what they want to do is connect with friends and family. They're here to connect with their friends. They're here to connect with their family. They want to chat with people that they care about. So that's unique. And if I think about CPG, and I actually used to work in the CPG industry. I ran marketing and consumer communications for Nestle for the Middle East and North Africa. And we were trying desperately to be a part of people's experience on a daily basis and to have those moments of connection. And so for me, if I think about why is Snapchat really unique for a CPG advertiser, it's that opportunity to be a part of those moments of connection that matter so much to our community and to really be able to participate in that. And then the other thing that makes Snapchat unique is, we have a really wide range of ways for brands to show up on the platform. And I think for CPG, as the CPG, space and CPG advertisers are starting to explore more full funnel solutions and thinking about how do we move out of this world of just being in broad reach, broad awareness, but really be pushing consumers down the funnel. We've been investing a lot in our lower funnel and sort of more performance driving solutions and working to make that really seamless for CPG advertisers who've maybe already found success on the platform in those more broad reach ways.
When I say retail media, what comes to your mind?
Comes to mind, retail digital media is what comes to mind to me. So if I think about, the investments that Walmart is making, I was listening to you guys talk a little bit about Costco, which I think is a really interesting one.
Yeah.
And that space, it's such a unique and powerful space for CPG advertisers and really driving towards that last mile conversion. But what that space doesn't have is the user sort of joy and happiness that we have on Snapchat, right?
When they're there for a functional reason.
You're there to buy. And sometimes
you have a mission.
Exactly. You're trying to find something and you're ticking something off your list, right? You've got your list of things you need to buy. People come to Snapchat to have fun and to connect and to engage in those moments of joy. And so when a brand can participate in that, it's such a unique opportunity to also change the way that your brand is perceived with a user. And then the last thing I'll say is, scale, right? We just passed 900 million monthly active users, which is a huge accomplishment. And, we're going to continue on that path to reach 1 billion. And so that scale is really significant also for partners and to be able to break through and connect at scale that way.
Welcome to the podcast, Abby. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So I love the fact that you talked about the funnel, talked about connectivity. What I want to, for the audience of ours we have, 3 constituents. We have a lot of retailers, we have a lot of brands, we have a lot of agencies. Those are the audience that we've kind of cultivated. So to them, it kind of double click down on how does Snap bridge the gap between upper funnel storytelling and lower funnel conversion? Because a lot of them have gotten used to retail media and they love the lower funnel conversion, but you're just talking to the same people who've been buying your product, right? Yeah. The beauty of upper funnel is obviously discovery and bringing new to brand. And for a lot of brands that lost volume and lost households during the pandemic, because they chose alternatives because there's scarcity of resources. And now the inflation pressures have caused them to lose to, say, private label. How can you help bridge the gap between upper funnel and lower funnel?
Yeah, it's a great question. Something we've been investing in really heavily for the last couple of years. So I think, we've historically, played more in that upper funnel space for a lot of our partners, a lot of our advertisers, and that's done incredibly well for us, right? Yeah. Think about the reach that we have, the usage we have, but the investment we've made in our technology stack and our ad stack, we've focused heavily on the lower funnel in order to meet some of those needs of advertisers. So what we're increasingly starting to see is that, especially when advertisers are able to provide us with signal around who's purchasing. Signal, the big question. And then the question we get a lot, I'm beginning this a lot this week, is, where does that signal come from if you're kind of in the CPG space? Right. And that's where we're getting, creative about how do we pull that signal through from some of the third parties and the partners that are.
Because demographics demographics worked in the past. There are so many more powerful signals that 100%. Can come in and really help them understand, is their advertising investment delivering the return
delivering and paying off. So one of our core partners, one of our beauty partners, Lineage, we saw a lot of success with them when they implemented their conversions API. Okay. And so that signal element of it, right? They saw 100% increase in their conversion campaigns compared to the previous year. And so what we're seeing is that when brands, are able to sort of deliver that signal back to us, and then they adopt our lower funnel product solutions, they're seeing a really big success when it comes to their conversions. We're seeing that also across app install, app purchase, and some sort of lead gen products as well. So, when I think about kind of this space and CPG, for me, the bread and butter, and what I've been talking to a lot of partners about this week, is when you're able to kind of allocate budget across the funnel, right? So if you're doing the sort of broad reach, broad awareness work on Snapchat, you've got the spend there, you have those big high impact moments, and then you're adding on to that with sort of the more lower funnel conversion driving outcomes, we're able to really deliver a powerful, powerful performance in that world. And so we really want to encourage people to keep thinking of us, not just in that upper funnel space, but really to kind of, experiment in the conversion area. And then, of course, when it comes to upper funnel, some of the things that are really exciting to me, and the area that brands have seen a lot of success in, AR continues to be a big driver of impact for brands. That space of adding kind of an AR placement onto a Snapchat campaign can deliver a lot in terms of effectiveness for our brands. That's a space that people spend a lot of time in. They're highly engaged there. And so that's another area of investment and innovation that's really important for brands to be aware of and to embrace.
Brilliant.
Speaking of lower funnel,
Yeah.
are there specific categories that it works better for? Is it for everybody?
I think maybe back to the signal piece, right?
That's what determines
Lower funnel works really well if you have the signal that you can pass back. So in particular, if I look at some of our more D2C brands where they have that component, that tends to work really well. Beauty is one where we've seen, a lot of success. We've also seen success with brands like Crumble, in kind of that, confectionery space,
the
right?
Crumble
Delicious.
cookies.
The Crumble cookies. They're like a
now
category of their own.
I have lost my train of thought now. Now I am craving a Crumble chocolate chunk cookie.
And Crumble's really interesting, right? What they were trying to do on our platform was get people to download their app. That's what they wanted people to do. That was their goal, and it worked, right? They saw a 237% increase in installs, over a 400% increase in purchases. So that was their objective, was I want people to download the app. It worked, right? We were able to deliver that. Again, there was an element of kind of that signal readiness that helped them. But, if I think about within the CPG space, who can really win with lower funnel quickly?
Yeah.
It's if you've got an action that you're trying to drive towards that you can easily measure, whether you've got your own kind of D2C component, which more and more CPG brands are moving into, right? Trying to either acquire that or do it themselves. If you've got an app component, if you have a loyalty piece, that's the other one that I think a lot
very
about.
Strong customer data platform with loyalty. Yeah, sure.
You're trying to pull someone in, just get them to sign up to your email database. Or for a lot of companies, recipes are a really big deal.
For food companies, I think there was a point I was working with Campbell's Soup, and I understood the value of those recipe subscriptions and their ability to understand, okay, these are the kinds of foods and ingredients that people like. Really powerful signals.
It's super powerful, and it's sticky. Recipes are very sticky. If you can get someone excited about getting recipes from you, and it's the same with, if I think about brands like Pampers or Huggies or infant formula brand, where you have sort of the parent connection too. A lot of these, brands are investing in parenting apps and resources. And so again, if you are in the space that, historically you're selling products offline, it's brick and mortar, so it's very difficult to get the conversion signal back. But if there are other actions you're trying to drive towards, whether that's, the loyalty piece, that's where you can play really, I think, really heavily in that lower funnel space and succeed.
So part of the full funnel, Snap's focus has always been on real relationships.
Yeah.
How does that translate into retail outcomes for brands? I'm guessing full funnel is the way to go.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, one of the areas that I'm incredibly excited about when it comes to real relationships, we've just expanded our ads products in our messaging, the messaging part of our app, right? And that to me that's the core of those real relationships. You're connecting directly with someone you care about, and now you can connect directly with a brand. So we've always offered we recently launched at the end of last year, like a takeover opportunity in our messaging experience. And that was sort of the first impression. It was a big buy, make a splash. We've just expanded access to that chat experience for auction buys on the platform, which makes it possible for more brands to show up and chat more often in a way that is, more flexible to their budgets and the outcomes they're trying to drive. So that the real relationships on Snapchat, many of them happen within that chat feed, and being able to show up there as a brand is a really exciting thing. We'll continue to explore conversational commerce and other elements that will make that an even more impactful placement, but we've already seen really powerful results in terms of the reach. It's ended up being our largest reach placement across the entire platform. And also, as we're looking at lower funnel, we're also seeing really encouraging results on the decrease in sort of cost per whatever the advertiser is trying to optimize for.
Well, I have to say, with 900 million users, I am going to myself qualify you as a subject matter expert on behavioral data sets. And so what I'm going to ask you to do with having all of that rich behavioral data at your disposal, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what does Gen Z really expect from CPG brands today? And how should brands evolve to meet that? What's the biggest myth brands still believe about Gen Z engagement on social platforms like Snap?
Gosh, there are so many myths about Gen Z, aren't there? We were in a conversation yesterday, and it's they're not going to want to have jobs in the future. They're not employable. Their attention spans are so small. They're not able to commit to certain things. There's so many misconceptions.
8 seconds is an eternity. Is what brand advertisers are fearing. They can't do their 30-second ad spot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we launched our Snapchat generation report, which came out I think last week as sort of in advance of Cannes, and we found that a lot of the things that people believe about Gen Z, they don't end up really being true. This is a generation that's really desperate to connect. They want to be, talking to each other and having those moments of connection. So some of the things that we saw were really around the way that they're exchanging voice notes and connecting with different people on the platform. So, we saw through our research that in the US, the sort of Snapchat generation, they're sending 2.5 billion voice notes in Q1 of 2025, which is huge, right? And that's up from 650 million a year ago. So this idea of really wanting to connect and engage with each other, I think there's a misconception that maybe that's not as big there. But we know that this generation, there is sort of an element also of authenticity and wanting to show up in a way that's very real.
The real.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes is maybe misconstrued as ambivalence or entitlement or something, but it's not. It's that hunger for authenticity, and they're coming to Snapchat to find that authenticity and to be able to express themselves in a very real way.
Creator economy. Oh my goodness.
How about that? You said 2.4 billion voice notes.
2.5 billion voice notes in Q1 of 2025.
In one quarter.
It's huge.
That would average 10 billion a year if the trend continues. So, Peter, you and I are doing something right by trading voice notes in that case.
I think that's good.
We're 50 out of those 10 billion.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best.
Not a bad number.
Adding to the contributing to the achievement. Yes,
absolutely.
Well, and I think it's so interesting, isn't it? You think this generation that maybe isn't picking up the phone, they're not connecting with each other the way that we used to. But I watch this generation; they're constantly on their phone. When you look at what they're doing, they're talking to people. They're
just not talking the way that maybe we did. I mean, I remember
100%.
sitting at a restaurant in Vancouver.
I think Abby and you and me are not in the same generation.
No, but I remember sitting at a restaurant
at this point.
And sitting next to us, there was a table of 6, much younger generation. And they were all on their phones. They weren't talking. They weren't verbally talking to each other. But then I'd all see them laugh at the same time. They're talking to each other.
Yeah.
They're just talking to each other, not how I was used to talking to other people.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's
what works for them.
It's the biases our generation has that the only way you interact and create authentic relationships, you have to speak in English or speak in your language in front of each other, and that's the only way. But that's because it's our inability to get with the program. It's not the other way.
I think that's where one of the gaps comes in, right, from a marketing perspective too. Is a lot of times the decision makers and the budget. I'm going to do it. I want one of them. I think that and we see this a lot with Snapchat in particular, right? The decision makers, the budget holders sometimes don't have that full understanding of how people are connecting.
A very wise and sage luminary in this industry, I won't mention him by name, has said and made an announcement to CMOs. I don't expect you to use the social media channels to be out there sending messages, but if you don't have those on your device, and you can't bring people, you should not be a CMO.
You're not qualified.
I mean, look, that's where
you
people
have to
are
be
making
aware.
their decisions.
You have to be aware how people. You go where the consumers are.
Yeah.
You go where the consumers are.
And purchase decisions are so influenced by these platforms, right? It's a massive contributor to how people are making brand choices, how they're making purchasing decisions, they're recommending things to friends.
Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust what the brand said? Are you going to trust what the retailer said? You're going to trust what your friends say. Like you're about connections and friends. That's the kind of stuff that they want to hear about.
I mean, the way I think of,
I'm
rolling it one level higher and saying it's an attention economy. And if that's
attention
where
economy.
humans are, you need to know where humans are.
Yeah.
And you need to know what product they use. Nothing different than 30 years ago in the CPG industry, you would do shop-alongs in store because that's where they were.
I would actually take it a step further from just show up where they are, show up where your consumer is, to show up in a way that's authentic to how they show up in that place, right? And that's the other thing we see a lot on Snapchat, and it's true across the board, but being able to show up on Snapchat authentically, right? Showing up in a way that fits with the way that our community shows up, the way they want to communicate with each other. It's so important, and especially if I think about CPG brand advertisers, tell your story in a way that feels consistent with how people connect and communicate on the platform.
Wait. You're saying the 30-second TV ad wouldn't work on Snap's platform?
I mean, the 30-second TV ad, beautiful, do it. But no, I mean, it's not the right way to show up here. Show up here in a way that's authentic.
Brands need to vibe with the platform and how those consumers are using it.
And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be super hard. We see brands that succeed by producing content that probably was shot on someone's phone, but it worked, right? It was the right thing. They're taking advantage of the creative tools that we have on the platform, and that's really where the beauty comes in, right? If you can show up on the platform in a way that's really authentic to how people connect, how they want to communicate with each other, and not have it be a disruptive experience.
You've kind of tripped on a much more deeper root cause opportunity for the largest brand, like the large market cap brands in the world in general. I would say mid-tier as well, which is talent in the marketing space. I don't want to use words like it needs an upgrade. It needs to be curious and
Curiosity.
Learn. Curiosity is the number one virtue, I think, for talent, and that's what you're speaking to. But let me remind the audience, excuse me. Let me remind the audience that we're speaking with Abby Laursen from Snap Inc. And so, Abby, we kind of started touching upon this topic with this conversation we were just having on CMOs, etc. How is Snap helping brands remain culturally relevant, but also staying authentic, which is true to that? And now I'm flipping the coin here. This is authenticity for brands true to their identity. We just said the 30-second TV ad is probably not the best choice, so...
Yeah, I would argue Snap is probably one of the best places for brands to retain that cultural relevancy and to build it. We see a lot of brands trying to figure out the way to show up on Snap and the best way for them to build their brands on Snap. And the cultural relevance piece is the critical superpower that Snap can deliver to a brand. So I talked a little bit about some of our ad products that I think are really helpful here. But just to kind of go back to it, right? We have within our platform, the way that consumers really aim to connect is through messaging and through their chat experience. We've launched and expanded our sponsored Snap solution, which is the opportunity for brands to show up in that chat feed. That's the most loved, kind of one of the most used parts of our app. And that's now possible across the funnel. You can do it from an upper funnel perspective, also lower funnel, driving conversions. So, if I think about cultural relevance, if you just think about, when you're talking about sitting at dinner, I think next to a group of sort of the Snapchat generations, as we call them, right? I mean, you look at what they're doing on their phone, half the time they're on Snapchat. They're snapping each other. Yeah. And so being able to show up in that environment, that's a way for brands to stay culturally relevant, be part of not just the conversation, but that conversation, what they're talking about, how they're exchanging messages and information. To be there is really critical. And then the other one that I'll talk a little bit too is, we have a part of our service. We have our Snap Map, which is, I think, one of the most used maps globally. We just got to 400 million monthly active users for our map, which is also
those numbers
massive.
Those
are staggering.
across the board. That's the second one you gave us.
It's huge, right? These are huge numbers. And within that experience, right, what we know is that people aren't looking to get from point A to point B. That's not the point. That's not why they're in the Snap Map. They are trying to figure out where their friends are, where their family members are, and they're trying to figure out what's cool around them that they can take advantage of. Okay. And so they're looking for places to go and visit and experience. And that's sort of making up their daily lives and a bit of sort of their culture. Brands can now be in the map. And this is something people have been asking us for years, to really have that opportunity to show up in the map and be a part of those exploration moments that our community is having. So we have a product called Promoted Places, which is in testing now, which allows a brand to show up on our map if the brand has sort of a brick and mortar experience, to show up on the map. And we're going to be expanding that in the next couple months to also allow for a partnerships experience. So if I think about, again, back to brands where they're brick and mortar, sellers, that's where they're driving the most of their conversions. They can partner with a retailer so that their brand and their product shows up on our map in partnership with a retailer. And that's a huge opportunity to really drive foot traffic to a location and then ultimately drive the conversion. But more than that, it's an opportunity for a brand to be a part of that really important moment of discovery and connection within the Snap experience.
Well, first of all, I love how snap is also a verb. They are snapping.
Yes, they are snapping.
Because when I grew up, snapping,
Snap Map.
When I was growing up, snapping involved elastic components of clothing, and it was not a good experience when you were a kid and I had a kid in elementary school. So this is good news. All right, so how do you see the line between social and retail blurring in the next year or two?
I mean, it already has, right? I think if we think about where are people choosing to make their purchasing decisions, the influence, and we already talked about this before.
The influence is
it comes from social, right? This is where people are being most influenced to make their purchasing decisions, whether it's coming from a friend, whether it's coming from a creator, whatever it is, that's where they're making their choices. So I think the line in a way has already been blurred quite substantially. And we already see that, one of the things you see a lot is someone's in a retail location. What are they doing? They're on their phone. They're looking for what to buy. They're not even looking around at the shelves.
That's the bigger issue, right? Too often, traditional brand marketers think of it's either offline or online. I go into physical store or it's pure e-commerce.
Yep.
It's about the path to purchase is what you're saying. They're in the store. If you don't understand that every shopper walks into the store, virtually every shopper, with an incredible, very smart device called a smartphone, you're missing the picture. This is about fluidity. This guy over here has said to me many times, all sales are 100% digitally influenced to one degree or another.
No debate in my head.
They are.
I mean, I really, really get annoyed. I'm just going to say the word, annoyed by people who say 67.3% of sales are digitally influenced. It's like the simple answer to this question lies in how engaged are you on your smartphone or your tablet or whatever it is, your device all day long. That's where you source information from. That's where you source news from. That's how you engage with the human species, if that's the right word. And that's how I engage with my pets as well, because my young baby, 2-year-old Zoomy, is now my cover page on my phone. Well, why do we debate then that we're not 100% influenced by digital? It's silly.
100% true. And even, someone's in a store, they're trying to make a decision what to buy. What are they doing? They're snapping a friend to say, which one should I get? Should I get this lip gloss or that lip gloss?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
they're checking ratings and reviews, product efficacy, price.
But they want their trusted network to tell them.
To tell them where it comes from. And
does this work for me?
Exactly. Does this work for me? And so that moment, right, and a lot of this is the inspiration behind what I was just talking about before with Promoted Places. If you can blur that kind of social and retail experience within a product itself, right, which our map can do. You're in that location, you're there, and how do we then deliver the right sort of nudges for a user to make the right purchase decision, or right from the brand's perspective. But that is really sort of the manifestation of that blurring of the lines for us. And I think Snap plays a huge role in how people are making those purchasing decisions and asking questions of each other. And so in a way, if I think about the blur between social and retail, it's already happened. And if brands aren't showing up in the places where that 100% influence is happening, and they're not showing up in a way that is authentic and that makes sense, they're missing out. Yep. And look, where are our consumers? So many of them, they're on Snap, they're here. And to not be showing up in a way that you can influence those purchase decisions in that moment of truth, that's, you're missing out. And I think, one of the things you asked me about earlier was retail media or retail digital media, and how does Snap compare? If I think about, there are a lot of, I think, brands that view in that last moment when you're sort of in the store, the holy grail is that I can deliver an ad on someone's phone. Like it's from the retailer, I'm in the retailer, and then I'm going to buy the product. But that's not how people make choices, right? They're in their favorite apps, they're connecting with their friends. It's likely not the same app as the store that you're in, right? You're doing something different. And so to be able to influence across all of the places that a consumer is showing up and that they're connecting it's so critical. It's so important. And it allows that line that's been blurred, it allows a brand to take advantage of it in the most powerful way.
You can't just be authentic. You can't just be where your consumers are. It needs to be in combination.
Yeah.
Abby, earlier in the show, you kind of referred to a research report for brands. So it'd be awesome to know what sort of insights brands can find in this research report. The CPG Guys, of course, will include a download link in the digital liner notes of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Snapchat generation is a report that we released last week. And a lot of it was really focused at helping to kind of pull back the curtain on who's on Snapchat, right? Who is here? How can we help people?
That's public data at this stage?
Public data available. I think you said the link would be available for your listeners. And this is really, we've sort of long known within the company how unique our community is and how important it is for us to really, provide the services and the experiences that will work for our community. And we want to make sure that we're making it clear to the outside world too of what's so unique about this audience. And so we did a research report to try and identify some key insights that just sort of give a little bit more context and color to who this Snapchat generation is. And a few of the things that I think are really exciting and maybe eye-opening for people to see and to understand. So one of them, if I go back to the authenticity and to kind of what makes Snapchat unique and how people show up on Snapchat unique, something we see a lot is that people actually blur their snaps on Snapchat. So the content that they're putting onto the platform, they're not looking for it to be perfect. They even use it. We have a lens, which is sort of a blurry lens, which is one of our most popular ones. And it's this idea of not wanting things to show up perfectly. So our lens, that sort of blurry, if it has blurry in the name, was viewed over 3.2 billion times in 2024, right? So this sort of idea that it doesn't need to be perfect, it doesn't need to be right. People are willing to kind of live in the imperfection. And we saw actually that 80% of Snapchatters say that Snapchat is where they can be their most authentic and real self.
Love that.
What's cool actually is we hear this from our version of creators, which we call Snap Stars. They're posting on our service. They're posting on Snapchat over 100 times a day, and that's because they live their lives on Snapchat. They post a perfectly.
It is integral to how they communicate in the world.
It's life.
It is, and it's not even our Snap Stars have a big community that they've built, and what they're using Snapchat for is to share with that community what they're doing in their daily life on an ongoing basis, and they want brands to be a part of that. So I think there's sort of that lo-fi, authentic experience, and that's how people really want to show up on the platform. And then the other thing, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but the other thing we're seeing is that this Snapchat generation, they're sort of narrating, confessing, and kind of having this sort of yapping their way into connecting with people. So they're constantly communicating with each other. So we saw that, Snapchatters collectively talk for more than 1.7 billion minutes each day on average. So Snapchatters collectively talk for more than 1.7 billion minutes each day. Wow. That is a lot, right? And that's gone up 30% from last year. Then we said this before, but we see that Snapchatters in the US send over 2.5 billion voice notes. They sent over 2.5 billion voice notes in Q1. which is up from 650 million voice notes a year ago. So this idea of constantly connecting, constantly communicating with each other, this is another thing that we know to be really true about the Snapchat generation. And then the last thing, and I sort of touched on this earlier, but the kind of connection and communication between friends and doing it sort of real time, that's happening every day for our community. So we saw that Snapchatters, they sent over 880 billion chats in Q1 of 2025, which is massive. And maybe to your point earlier about how many purchase decisions are influenced by an online platform, 92% of daily Snapchatters include their friends in their shopping journey. So 92% of daily Snapchatters include their friends in their shopping journey.
Zero surprises for me. Zero surprises. It's just for brands. A lot of this might be a surprise.
I'm surprised that I didn't know that I can now put a blurry filter when I communicate with this guy, because that's going to
have some fun
make
with
it
it.
much more palatable.
Send him a snap of your forehead,
Yes.
you know, like that's
A
another
blurred
really
forehead would be a
popular
good one.
But this is actually really interesting too, right, from our report. Of those people that are snapping during their shopping journey, half are sending messages or pictures via Snapchat, right? So they're that moment of I'm in that shopping experience, and they're sending those messages and pictures back and forth to each other. So being able to be in that daily, ongoing conversation, it's critical for brands. You're missing out on an opportunity if you're not participating in that conversation.
So Abby, what does the future retail media meets social commerce look like from your seat? And what's one awesome, you've given us so many, but what's one innovation or trend at Snap that CPG leaders should be paying more attention to?
Yeah, so I think the sort of the piece of what's the future of retail media meeting social commerce, something that we're thinking about a lot, and this has come up a lot, while we've been here this week and talking to different partners. We know that for the CPG advertisers out there, this is a moment of really needing to focus on efficiency in many ways, and also a moment to really focus on effectiveness. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're continuing to improve our targeting solutions, our optimization solutions, and really enhancing and embracing our machine learning models and optimizations so that we're delivering the most efficiency and the highest ROI for our advertisers. And I think that's a really important component of where we want to dig in is to meet our advertising partners where they are. Efficiency is a big part of what we need to drive towards. The macro environment is not the friendliest right now to the CPG world.
Doubt about that one.
Right? And I think it's important for us to continue to really build out the solutions that improve that efficiency. And again, kind of, going back to how do we continue to support our advertisers as they build out their own signals and ingest those into our platform. And then I think the other piece is, as if I think about, our CPG partners, there's this constant desire to capture new audiences and to keep up with the audiences that they have and that they need to grow. And so, I think as the world continues to evolve in kind of the retail space and in the CPG space, that idea of how do you capture an audience that is continuing to change, that's a place where, Snapchat has a big advantage, right? We have a very unique, highly engaged audience across a wide range of age groups. And so it's a really important place. And then you said sort of one other innovation that I should speak to. We haven't talked yet about Snapchat Smart Campaign Solutions.
Okay,
so Snapchat Smart Campaign Solutions is our AI-driven suite of performance marketing tools on the platform that allow advertisers to see the most effective outcomes on our platform with sort of the least amount of effort. So we have a smart bidding.
So the AI part of this is the least amount of effort?
Correct.
For the best optimized campaigns?
So you give us what you're trying to accomplish.
Like a
we're
brief.
building out a set of solutions that allow you to see that outcome for the most efficient cost. So smart bidding solutions, smart audience solutions so you can easily expand your audience, and campaign optimization so that you can sort of move between campaigns, move your budget between campaigns that are performing the best. So that innovation, again, back to sort of the efficiency driving and getting someone the right outcome, that's a really big space of innovation for us. And we've talked about the other big ones, ads in chat, promoted places, these are the things that we really want to double down on.
Abby, how's Snap really helping brands prove ROI especially when it comes to full funnel performance, like if the old John Wanamaker, 50% of your advertising dollars are wasted, I just don't know which 50% are. So, how does attribution play a role in a world where so many platforms are walled gardens in terms of the ability to access and make meaningful use of that data?
Yeah, I mean, this is the $1 million question, and the thing we're spending so much of our time on today. All of our partners, all of our sort of advertisers, so many of them have very different definitions of performance. This is something very, it keeps getting more complicated. You look at what everyone's trying to drive towards, and it's such a massive range. And so we've invested heavily in the resources and the tools to be able to deeply understand what an advertiser is trying to drive, what does performance look like for them, and how do we make sure that we're fully integrated on our side to be able to measure that performance. And something that is a continuous journey that takes time. That's an investment to understand the definition of performance, make sure that things are linked up in the right way, and then on our side to continue to make investments with measurement partners and other third-party providers to make that as easy as we can for our advertisers. So for me, it's really, it's about meeting our advertisers where they are, investing from a resources perspective, a technology perspective, so that we can prove the ROI on our platform, and then continue to increase that and improve it for advertisers over time.
Awesome. Let me remind our listeners, you can find all of our content by simply going to a web browser and typing cpgguys.com as the URL. If you or someone you know has something to contribute to this ongoing discussion on the CPG Guys, simply drop us a line at contact@cpgguys.com. Again, that email is contact@cpgguys.com. To our audience, thank you for the clicks, likes, comments, DMs, meeting us at trade shows, shooting podcasts, coming to our events, recording episodes with us and our sponsors. We are always grateful for you. This show doesn't exist without all of you. You work with us all year. We're grateful to have you as your audience and partners. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Abby, busy show. You have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Thanks for making time for the CPG Guys.
Of course. Very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Peter, as always. It's been a fun 4.5 days.
Sri, we haven't gone shoe shopping yet. We've got to do that before we get out of town.
And the Hermes scarf. Don't forget that.
Oh, yes, the Hermes scarf.
With that, that's a wrap of this episode of the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.